or waterfall approaches. So feel free to introduce yourself first and then share your idea about this question. And then we will be back with Eduardo to start our main topic.
Perfect. So how many people?
We are 18 altogether.
How many people we have? So we have around 18, right? Okay, perfect. So let me split into groups.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, Mona.
Hello.
So right now everybody is in breakout rooms, but it just in 30 seconds everybody will come back and we can continue with the activity, Mona.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So everybody is in the room right now?
Yeah, I'm back.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
So
So
we're back.
how was the activity? Everything good?
A little bit short. I do not have the chance to speak, and then I would move back.
Yep.
Oh, sorry
No,
about
no, no,
that.
no worries, no worries. Yeah.
So, but feel free to connect with all of us. So I will post my profile on LinkedIn so we can connect, and also at any time so we can reach out each other and talk about a little bit more about ourselves and what we do, right? So no worries. So can we move on, Kusei, with the next activity, Eduardo?
Yeah,
Of
for sure.
course, sure.
Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, perfect, Eduardo.
Okay.
So all the floor is yours, Eduardo.
Thank
Take it
you so
away.
much. Yep. I like being here. Thank you for the introduction. It sounds, really good, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here, guys, and sharing this 25 minutes and the entire hour with you. So, as you can see on the agenda, waterfall or agile, brief introduction, and then going all the way down to product owner and roles and responsibilities. I'm working on the business side currently in the last 2 years in corporate commercial, and we can have the same length of material to talk about the different roles in Scrum and Agile, but in this occasion we're just focusing on this. I'm not saying that Agile is better than Waterfall or vice versa. I'm just saying that it's good to mention, and I was mentioning this in my group, that I also felt 5 minutes that just went by so fast, that it depends on the project and how we are just working towards delivering. So, is there any question? I have to mention, I love both methodologies, and I also like working in hybrid. And we're currently working in a hybrid approach. So we have business case, we have financial, we have the PMO office, and we have lots of stakeholders that project managers also are helping us quite a lot to navigate the more complex organization. So we'll discuss the different layers. So we can move to the next slide. I like always introducing, what is the difference between waterfall and agile, and it's essentially, I'm not gonna read the entire thing. You're gonna keep this material, for yourself. I like just having some discussion points, and feel free to raise any question during the presentation. We can. I'm timing myself. We're gonna try to keep it in 25 minutes. It's a short time, but I would like to have questions as conversations during the presentation. So to put it simple, waterfall is essentially making a good plan at the beginning and sticking to the plan. Agile is more empirical, is more context related, and people need just to find out ways to do spikes and research within the project development and adapting the plan towards how we are evolving. One is a methodology, is really complex, is heavy as all methodologies being developed since the 1970s, and is being implemented in many industry, financial, construction, and in the military. The other one is more new. It's been since maybe the 1990s when it was very popular. That's Agile. Like I said, it has some pros, it has some cons. We have to weigh the difference and also do an assessment, and we're going to see it in some of the next slides, when is best to go either waterfall or agile. And as Jaime was mentioning in my group, sometimes we just have to assess not only the company, if we're ready. And I prepared a set of questions in order to understand if my organization is ready, my team is ready, but even further, we can take that to is my project ready? So can my project be successful if I implement a agile delivery framework? So all those questions we have to answer, because we will find benefits of one framework or pros and cons in any framework we're working with. Let's go to the next. Again, feel free to stop me and ask questions. This comes from, there is a series of presentation every year in which they run Scrum organization, the Agile at scale, different organization, discipline Agile delivery methods. They get together every year, and they're doing this since 2011, if I remember well. And they do some statistics, how the implementation and scaling Agile in different industry is moving forward. And you can see some of the blockers of why Agile, or you can say any framework, in this case is specific to Agile, what are the blockers we're encountering while introducing Agile. You see company culture, and this will bring us to the set of questions I was mentioning before. Lack of expertise with Agile. Sometimes we don't have that expertise within the company, and we just want to rush it and launch Agile because we need to, we have a KPI, and we need to say how many projects we have working in Scrum, and that is not the proper way. Lack of executive and management support, unwillingness to other functional groups to follow the Agile methodology. I'm going to mention two departments we fight a lot. One of them is financials, and the other one is, the PMO office, because it's very different in how value is being delivered. But also, people think that waterfall in waterfall industries, that bringing a new framework is probably destabilizing the organization, which is not. It's also disrupting the industry, which is not. In many cases, it's not. We have to adapt the methodology to, like I was saying, the industry or the company or the organization of my team or even my project. And there are also some architectural dependencies, because the way we implement projects, we need to change some of the IT architecture, and we need, in a bank that has been operating since the last 180 years, the case of Scotiabank, or companies that have worked before, they've been in the market for a long time. They have legacy systems and not having the proper architecture. So you're comparing a bank that has been in the industry for more than 150 years with companies that are launching just today, hosted in Amazon warehouse, and having databases, like Google, Facebook, you name it, Spotify, Shopify. And those companies are really agile because they were born recently and they're very dynamic. And some other industry, they need to fight with their current infrastructure in order to prepare themselves. So lots of blockers, but still doable. Go to the next, please. Some of the questions I like answering, and I put all of them in the table, is, are we truly agile? I've seen organizations saying they are, and they don't ask some of the basic questions. Is my culture ready? And we can start asking those questions from the project level up to the sponsorship level, to the executive level. Have you solicited a third-party assessment? So have you had any agile coach or set of consultant who's been successfully implementing in kind of a similar industry, agile frameworks? And have you had that? And sometimes the answer is no, they're too expensive, or whatever the reason is. Have you considered all the impacts of implementing a framework? Are your teams embodying and mastering the agile mindset? Are you willing to train them? When we started in the bank in 2014, heavily implementing this, they were asking around who wanted to become Scrum Master, who wanted to become Product Owner, and they were giving training not only inside the bank, but also paying other consultant companies and Scrum organization and Scrum Alliance. And we went to SAFE, and we went to many agile vendors and providers to get the training, proper training from people who are truly certified. And then we came back to start implementing all this knowledge. So some companies are really looking forward to change. Some companies are working toward changing, and they know they need to be hybrid for a period of time before becoming truly agile. Let's go to the next. Let's make a small pause. Any questions right now? Are we good?
Yeah, actually, I have a question or a comment. I guess
Yep.
most of what you're discussing is regarding internal projects developed by internal teams, as opposed to, let's say, a company that develops software for a customer.
In our case, I would say, Carlos, that we're working for internal and external, but the bank is also developing some application for our customers. We're now developing software to sell software to other companies. In the bank, we either do some business to employee application, which is the one that I've been working in the last maybe year and a half. We do application to innovate how our bankers are doing business and how we support our customers. In some other projects, I've worked with the bank on mobile applications. We're developing apps for our customers to be using the apps. But yes, for sure, if I understood your question well, we're not developing pieces of software to sell to other parties. It's more for the bank to consume, either business to customer or business to employee.
Okay, yeah, because one of the potential blockers, especially if you're developing for an external paying customer, it's time, cost, and scope. Scope is supposed to be variable, but if it's an external customer, they usually want to fix the scope, they want to get a fixed price, and they want a specific delivery time. So
Yes.
that's probably one of the biggest blockers I find. Organizations not understanding that Agile, it doesn't mean it's not just kumbaya type of stuff. That you actually have to change your mindset, I guess, and they haven't necessarily made that change.
That has happened to us, Carlos, when we hire some of the consultants. I've worked with McKinsey, and when you go to these consulting companies and you engage them for 12 weeks or 16 weeks, they need to have this in a statement of work. What is the scope you're hiring them for? So you cannot give them, we're going to be contextual, and we're going to be learning as market research comes in. And I totally get your point. Sometimes we just need that piece of the waterfall world in which we say, this is the value what I want, and being able to put that into a statement of work. Companies, they have been more flexible in terms of what they want to build, and we're going to see it in a couple of slides forward, that it is all a game of delivering what is, on the 20-80 rule or the 80-20 rule. You want to deliver 20% of the functionality that gives to your customer 80% of the value. So even if you're doing a statement of work and you know where the meat is, where the core functionality and value is located, and for that you need to have a very good product owner. That's why today's presentation is based on product owner role. If you have that and you get not to develop, let's say 40% of the application, you always end up delivering what is true value for your customer. But it's difficult. It's difficult because sometimes a lot of companies, consulting companies, third parties, they want a closed statement of work because money is involved and scope is involved. But good point. Truly agile companies, the delivery framework objectives, working product at the end of the sprints. This is not happening in most of the hybrid organization. We tend to wait maybe 3, 4, 5 sprint in order to deliver value. We're not that fast. And also when working in a bank where compliance is very high, because this is an industry that is very regulated, we need sometimes just to package more functionality to go to the regulator and ask the banking commission, this is what we're going to be implementing. This is how we're managing and treating customer data. And Agilists, I've seen some very good Agile coaches that they go just nuts when they see what's happening in the bank, because they come from software industry, and software industry is faster, it's more dynamic, it's more, it can change really fast. In a very heavily regulated industry, we're not, able to do that. Sometimes we have to comply, and in order to comply, we need just to go to the regulators and tell them this is the kind of innovation we're doing, and then implementing that. But for some of that, we need permission. Faster time to market, for sure. Make life better and easier for delivery teams. I've seen that benefit right out the gate, and promotes better transparency over all the work stream. Just the fact that we're working on iteration, short iteration, teams, they get to see progress, and sponsors, they get to see the software working at the end of the demo. And in a hybrid world in which we bring all these ceremonies and we bring all these agile artifacts and we get participation from our stakeholders, it's been really positive, for the entire team.
So Eduardo, before going
Yes.
deeper into our topic, we have a participant question. If you like, you can share your take on that. And Felipe asks, is Agile applicable to all types of projects?
I'm going to say values and principles. I'm going to say yes. The framework, the entire framework, if we want to be prescriptive and say, I'm going to apply, and I'm going to give you an example, either Kanban or Scrum or Discipline Agile. If you want to implement the framework itself, probably not. And you have to assess what kind of project you're working on. If it is heavily regulated, if it is a construction project, if it is something that needs, related to infrastructure in which you need to enable different layers of technology in order to get value, I would say no. But having, transparency, having respect, having the individual over processes and tool, having working software being shown to the team, having small team working on short iterations. Definitely those principles we're going to see that also in a couple of slides. We can apply that to any project because we're now waiting for a big phase to finish, like let's say requirements, and then another big phase to finish, which is development. And we're gathering feedback at the end with the tester or when we're implementing. We're getting all these feedback loops right on the project. So you have to run your assessment to see the project, and you have to look into the values that Agile, Lean, Scrum, Kanban, they bring to the table and inject those into your projects. Values, they cross all over projects. Framework, you have to assess.
Thank you for your answer, and thank you for the question, Felipe. If you have further questions, feel free to write down in the chat, or you can also unmute yourself and ask it. Thank you.
Yes. More objectives from Agile Delivery Framework. We represent the voice of the customer, and we cannot walk away from that. This is, what we need to have it present all the time. Early value delivery, more innovation, frequent market launches. We just spoke about it. Programs, work stream, constant feedback, and adjustment cycles. This feedback is not for free, and sometimes it's painful, and sometimes it's even more expensive. And this is where project managers say, I told you, Agile is more expensive. And sometimes they're right. It's more expensive because we need to do some adjustment cycle, and we need to redevelop, refactor the code, re-implement, and those cost money. But what is happening is that you're giving to your customer earlier what the customer is telling you they want. Whereas if we're working in other frameworks, we just going up until the end, and then we get a tsunami of recommendation coming back to us. And that is also, we call that in project management a PCR, which is a project change request. And yes, we need to work towards that. Let's go to the next. How we align the vision to strategy to the execution. When we need to have a vision, I like this quote. Truly shared vision is when you and I have a similar picture and are committed to one another in having it, not just of us individual having the vision. This is from Peter Senge. And vision, shared vision, in which all of us have the same vision without the same commitment, is not a shared vision. We need to have that vision, spread across the team. And the one of the best way to do that is to have the team, whoever is developing the entire application, in a single room, we call that the lab, and we ask and we respond. More importantly than ask, we respond this question: who is buying the product? What kind of needs is the product addressing? What are the attributes of critical success? What are the product's unique selling points? And if we have all these questions, answered by the business, and IT is listening to the business and vice versa. Business is listening to other potential roadblocks that IT bring to the table, or finance, or HR, or legal, or whoever. If you have them in a single table working and digesting, the project, is always good input. How we translate this, we'll see this in the different layers of the vision in the next slide. You can see on this one, from day-to-day activities up until the strategy, how the vision is being shared and how different working teams are working in order to have iteration, release plan, product vision, and the portfolio, and even the strategy. The product vision is derived from the strategy objective, what business we want to be in the future or now, what competitive landscape, what's untapped opportunity we have there. So that's why it's critical, and this is going to allow me to do a segue to the product owner role. And the vision needs to be informed by the stakeholders, different stakeholders, and the product owner is in charge of listening to all of them through the different, through either the iteration at the end of the sprint, showing the demo, at the end of the release plan, showing that through different demos and different sprint, we can release a solution, or sharing with the portfolio layer or the strategy layer what is the product vision and how the product is becoming after some constant feedback and development. We inform the vision based on our stakeholder, continuous feedback. Could be the customer, could be the sponsor of the project, could be the testing group, could be a control group. All that market feedback needs to be intake into the project, adjust the product backlog, and do the increments of value. Product team, and this product vision is guided by the product owner. I'm not saying the product owner is the most important role, but definitely is a very important role within Scrum and Agile. Let's go to the next. When I talk about the product owner, I like talking about some of the responsibilities. I'm not going to go through this because we have a slide that is more graphic, but basically communicates, clarifies, what the requirements are. Part of the product team engages stakeholder and is accountable for translating. But if you go to the next slide, Amanda, please, you'll see. You have a product backlog on this matrix. You have a product owner in the center right there. And you have a product backlog, which is supporting the value and the vision. You also have the stakeholder, which are telling you, asking you, where we should go, what kind of financial, where empowerment we have, infrastructure that we have. And the product owner is prioritizing value, is doing some specification of the product, is implementing the product, and is realizing the value and the vision of the product. So how the product owner is doing this? By having a clear knowledge of the vision statement, by having a clear roadmap that is aligned with the stakeholder and customer expectation, by having a backlog that is highly prioritized so we know where we're going, and more importantly, if the product owner knows where we're going and is always sharing the vision and the prioritization, the roadmap with the team, everybody knows, even if you're in technology, in the testing team, in a developer, you know exactly what you're doing and why the organization is getting value out of your work. And that is amazingly, super important. User story creation and validation, and stakeholder communication. So we gather feedback, we justify decisions, and we balance priorities.
So Eduardo, we have another question here in the chat from Jorge. How to involve a leading user or owner of the need who doesn't know anything about project methodology, but has all the knowledge of the business?
We need to start getting that person exposed to the framework and the benefits of the framework. I would say if that is a person who has lots of knowledge, and giving them access to what the framework brings, which is planification. We have ceremonies looking forward, what are we doing? And we have ceremonies looking backwards, what we have done and what we have achieved as a team. If this person that brings knowledge from the business aspect get exposed to that kind of methodology and sees results, believe me, you're going to be converting that person into your framework, a believer of your framework. We need to expose them and we need to show them results. Why are we doing this? Why we need this kind of alignment between IT and business and finance? And if they see results, believe me, people who have the vision of the business and see results in frameworks that are iterative, that are short, that they're palpable, they can see a demo of working software at the end of the sprint, they're going to be pushing and supporting you in your team. The other, the opposite of that is also true. If I don't believe on that planning, and if I don't see results, if I don't see working software, if I don't see individuals, interacting within the team, I'm not gonna believe on any framework, and I'm gonna say, just these people can get bored really easy. So expose them to the Agile Manifesto, expose them to the benefits of the ceremonies and the framework. And once they see and realize that, they're going to be supporting your team.
Thank you, Eduardo.
Well, thank you. The last slide, and I think I have 1 minute left. I'm running out of time, but I'm going to go anyway, is what they bring, what a product owner, and I'm going to be closing with this. I'm going to be extending so we can do some question and answer. A product owner, they bring value maximization. And I mentioned this before, 80% of the value in 20% of the features. Maybe 80-20 is too much, but if you do 70-30, if you do 60-40, believe me, you need to prioritize where your value is. So if your initiative get cuts or stop because we don't have any more funding, or we need to launch because another competitor is launching something similar, if you're working based on prioritization, based on customer feedback, you end up giving the highest value first, and that is a total success in iterative, not only in Agile, in any iterative methodology. We know they bring knowledge and learn from their customers and market. That's what a product owner should be bringing to the table. They enable increased effectiveness. They properly write user story. They connect to the level of details. They know the acceptance criteria and what they are as a person, as a professional. They're present and available. They empower the team. They're decisive and timely in answering questions, and they're accountable and able to rationally justify a decision. They're knowledgeable and they train in product ownership. So you have, when you have so much knowledge and I've seen this senior manager level, I've seen this director level, and I've seen this. We have some product owners that are also vice president in the bank, yes, VP. And these people, they go to the same training, they participate in some of the refinement, they go and be present on the lab, and they know exactly what they're doing. They didn't know it before, but framework is easy to learn. What is difficult is to master. And in order to master whatever is that you're learning, you need to practice. And in order to practice, one way is to be present with the team in the lab, refining and explaining where the value is, so that people can also tell you where the challenges and the blockers, are. And with this, I complete my presentation so we can go to questions and answers, if there are any more questions.
Yes.
Thank you,
So
Eduardo.
now we are in the Q&A session, and we have collected some questions over the past several weeks. But first, we are going to address the questions that you have asked today. And first question is from Juan. Does the product owner need to know all details of the business?
All details of the business, I'm going to say, if not all details, they need to be very close. We need knowledgeable product owner, because if the IT team has doubts on why the value, what is it that we're implementing, or when the IT team start working and developers, they start working, or tester, they start testing the application, they're going to come up with very specific questions in terms of business rules, in terms of logic, that needs to be translated into an application if we're building an application. And I'm going to say, yes, maybe not all the questions, but they need to be very prepared. That's why you need a product owner which is very knowledgeable in terms of business, and they have empowerment. Because sometimes we get a product owner, they know a lot about the business, but they're not empowered, and they take time to get approval because they need to present to their director or VPs. That's why companies like the bank, they're trying to have a product owner, which is a vice president, so he can tell right away within the team, we're going to do this and we're going to do this now. And this is the kind of feedback and the kind of you as a Scrum team are expecting on the spot. If I'm the product owner and I say this is a way to do it, but let me get confirmation and I get back to you in a week, people are gonna stop. They're gonna be anxious, and they're not gonna be trusting what I'm saying because they know I need confirmation. So business knowledge, A plus, empowerment, A plus plus.
All right, all right. And we have another question from our chat. And Jaime asks, for embracing the agile methodology, how can be the mindset changed in organizations?
That's a very good question, and it's a very difficult question. It will depend on how open the teams are, and in terms of, and you need to know the team, and as well as you need to know the project you're working on, because if the team is a team that is not willing to do this kind of project and working on this kind of framework, it's going to be more challenging, and you see that in assessment. I've seen some small team being assembled, and then you see the agile coach or the scrum master assessing people, and there are methodologies to do this. Questions about open mind, there are surveys, and you get this kind of feedback. If you have a lot of resistance, it is best to escalate and have different team members than try to push or shove, a framework to people that are not willing to change. So you need some kind of open mind to start doing this. And you also, that's the easier way. A more complex way, you need to expose them to the framework and show them that what other teams are doing so they can get the benefit. And this has been done in many hybrid organizations. Once a Scrum team is assembled and you show them result to the entire organization, all the teams will raise their hand and say, we want to work on the same way. So you need some selling points and start converting people, especially when change management. So a project manager here that is very knowledgeable about change management is a key piece in order to have a new framework being introduced. Sometimes project managers, they get anxious about, what happens if the Scrum comes, I don't have Scrum background, I'm going to be removed. Far from the truth. You can be a big piece for the change and implementing those framework within any companies.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So we have another question from our chat. And the question is, who sets the pace on how the project moves forward?
The product owner. How is the pace set? By all the features and the epics and the value that needs to be delivered. So the product owner says, this is what's happening. And sometimes, why the product owner and not the market? People will tell you, it's the market who's telling this priority. But sometimes the person who talks to one Scrum team or multiple Scrum team is the business owner. And that business owner is the product owner. If the product owner has market research and the product owner knows, what the competitors are doing, what's happening in the market, and brings that to the table, he can say, either we do this in terms of our application, or we die and we're going to be behind what other banks or other companies are doing. So the pace is definitely driven by the business. And there is another team which is as important as the business, and I would say technology, because if technology is not there to enable the business, it doesn't matter what the business needs or want. If you don't have a car to compete in Indy 500, you're not going to win with your regular car. So technology needs to be there to enable your team, and the business needs to have that knowledge of the market to set the pace and tell technology and architecture and finance and even the sponsor what is that we need in order to be competitive and maintain our edge.
Thank you. So several factors. So our other question is, can you please give us an example of a project that is hybrid agile?
So how much time do we have? Because I can give you Hybrid Agile is project in which we have a governance layer, we have the financial layer, we have the sponsorship layer, we have a project in which some components are being delivered by the Scrum team, but some other components such as the business case, such as the statement of work, such as project plans for some components, let's say infrastructure component, have been in a team just recently in which we were not working with cloud technology because sensitive information. We were working with hosted in-house infrastructure. That means going to IBM and purchasing servers as we purchase in Best Buy a laptop for ourselves. So we needed to enable that team, that infrastructure team and enablement team, communication, security, in order to have secure all that infrastructure, working 100% waterfall. Project plan with a project manager and deliverables, in a Gantt chart. On the other side, the application team, which we were developing the software to be hosted on that infrastructure, working 100% Scrum. And the communication between these two, couple of Scrum Master on one side and one project manager and one project, a PCO, a project coordinator officer, working with these teams in order to have the project successfully implemented. So I've seen it many times. I've seen other teams in which finance is being managed 100% through the PMO using PMI artifacts. We present the business case, we go to the steering committee, we get the go, no go, we get financial approval, we get the forecasting and how the budget is going to be managed. And you have Scrum team saying, I need to realize value in this way. And then you have these two worlds colliding because one financial aspect is different in a waterfall aspect than in an agile aspect. So companies are learning how to do this and how to connect the two teams, but I've seen it.
Amazing, thank you. So we are approaching to the end of our Q&A session, but we still have time for one or two questions. So I'm going to address the last question we got from the chat, which is, in environments where you have tons of requests, not necessarily related or with dependency, how do you set an agile approach?
I would say, good question again. We need to have an enterprise backlog, and we need to have an enterprise visibility of all those requests. Sometimes the product owner have requests from many sides of the business or even technology or finance or whatever this feedback is coming from. We need to express what is important, and we need to have a team that decides. Sometimes in large organization, we have product owner and we have a product owner chief, which is maybe a senior vice president, or and we get to coordinate what enterprise priorities are going to be set. And once those are set, funding is allocated. But in order to have that and to have your funding secure, so your value gets prioritized first and you get funding for that, you need to have tons and lots of visibility. How do you accomplish that? Having an enterprise backlog that is being socialized at multiple levels, as we saw a couple of slides back, and you saw the iteration layer, and then the portfolio layer, and then the provision, and then the sponsorship, and the strategy layer. We need to expose that enterprise backlog to the enterprise layer so they know and they say, yes, this is, we have an internal resource allocation committee. And when we talk to them, I don't talk to them. At my level, I'm a senior manager, but when my boss or my boss bosses talk to them, we secure funding by presenting what are the program. And there are people knowing and discussing where and what are the next steps in terms of technology and applications that are going to be developed. You need to have visibility of the backlog, where the request is coming from, and prioritized by the proper executive level, so you get all this aligned, so you don't get any surprises in the middle.
Perfect, thank you very much. So we have a time for the last question, which is from Carlos. Would you say Agile is ideally suited for microservices architecture?
I would say yes. I like that. I haven't thought about it. And who's this question from?
From Carlos.
Carlos. Yes, the bank, a lot of industries, they launch Agile using Amazon Web Services, or they use Google GCP, which is a Google Cloud Platform, or they use any, Microsoft Azure. And if you're in technology, you know what I'm talking about. And having this rapid development and business as a service and infrastructure as a service, all these means, those are fancy words, but you can, instead of getting to one vendor, like I mentioned, Tech Mahindra or Tata or IBM, and getting a piece of hardware that takes months to have it according to your specification, you can get a server of any dimension, if you know what you're getting, in a couple of hours. Yes, 2 hours. Amazing. And you can get a server or a service developed and deployed within minutes. So having an Agile and showing value to the business is easy when you're working with micro apps and when you're working with microservices and when you're working with this cloud technology. But unfortunately, or fortunately for most of the people who work on hybrid environments, we have some industry that not all the projects are suited for this kind of technology, especially when there is customer information, and we just have to rely on hardware and physical infrastructure. But I would say yes, having this cloud-based technology and micro app technology is fantastic for a project like this. If I'm the executive in one of the company and I want to show that Agile work, I'll probably cheat and start working with micro apps technology and cloud technology to show results really quick.
Amazing. So first of all the attendants, thank you very much for all the questions. They were really great. And Eduardo, your answers were amazing. I think it's full of knowledge, and I think that we extracted the most out of this Q&A session. But now it's time to wrap up, and I'm handing it over to Amanda for it. And thank you very much for your questions again.
Thank you, Kusei. Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you all for your participation. Has been a very enriching discussion, very good questions. So thank you, Eduardo, for sharing such a relevant information. Has very informative. As I mentioned at the beginning, we will appreciate if you can give us your feedback regarding this session so that we can improve the experience for next webinar. So Kusei, if you can share the link on the chat box, I would appreciate that. So please feel free to fill out the quick survey. So next LPMN event. So we're gonna have the next webinar. The topic will be post-pandemic skills that are here to stay. So more details to come on the specific date and time. So stay tuned. So our resources and channels. So we have the PM Bistro group on LinkedIn. So Kusei is going to share as well the link to join us the group. So we'll be sharing webinar material, posting the some answers that it wasn't possible to respond today. And if you have any more questions and you have any more content that you want to discuss, feel free to leave in the PM Bistro group on LinkedIn. And as well, this is our LPMN website, so you can go and register if you are not member yet. So and also our YouTube channel. So subscribe to our channel, and if you like the session, give us a thumbs up. And also you can share the link with other colleagues as well. So I don't know if Eduardo and Kusei has any final comments.
I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's very full of knowledge and informative, and it was very interactive. Thanks to all of our participants. I think we made it great, and for a short period of time, like just for 1 hour, I think we covered many of the points of this exciting topic. Just register for the next events as well. We're planning to do like exciting events like this too. And Eduardo, thank you very much for your support for this event. Without you, it will be impossible, really. All the answers were great, and I enjoyed listening to you. Thanks a lot. And thank you, Amanda, for involving me in this opportunity as well. And thank you, LPMN too, for involving me. And I'm very happy to be a volunteer in this organization, and looking forward to doing many more events like this. And hopefully it's full of knowledge for our participants too, and good for your learning too. Don't forget to follow each other in our LinkedIn groups. And yeah, goodbye. See you in the next session.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was a pleasure being here. And yes, give it a try and see how you can start team building, realizing where you disagree. Run the assessment, start to get closer to the team, organize your organization or your project or even your team as a value delivery team, which is a different organization. What value are we giving to our customer? And you're gonna start seeing how people, how the team rapport and how the team communication start building up. So give it a try. And if it doesn't work, you can always go back to whatever framework you were working before. And that's the beauty. You can have an open mind and adapt to, the value that you're trying to deliver. So this works for software, works for marketing, works for financial projects, work for any project. Values, they travel across any project organization, and they're easy to implement, difficult to master. And the only way to master is practicing and living the values every day. So thank you, team. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, Eduardo. Thank you all for your participation. See you next month with our next PM Bistro. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we're gonna share the material probably in the next couple of days, and also in our LinkedIn group. So stay tuned for the detail for the next session in soft skills. Thank you so much and have a good night. Thank you for your participation. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.